Hi, my name is Mark. So again, welcome to another episode of Guitarist Week. For those who haven't watched the other episodes or don't really know what this series is about, you can think about this as this sort of guitar news segment, but instead of me talking about every single thing that happened last week, I'm just going to be talking about things that I thought were particularly interesting, funny, or that I think are discussion worthy in the guitar/music industry. So even though it's probably not relevant anymore, expect me to talk about stuff that I mentioned in the other episodes or stuff that were supposed to go on other episodes and I forgot about it. Like for instance, something I want to talk about is Jardines, because as I was editing last week's video of Guitarist Week, where I was talking about him asking for suggestions of what we think he should do about his 18-string guitar and his eBay auction not going as well as he thought it would and whatever. As I mentioned before, as I was editing my suggestion in, he uploaded a video telling everybody that the guitar was already sold. Basically, the guitar has been sold to a guy that works for DistroKid or that owns DistroKid, something like it. So you can't really auction to buy that guitar, but something you can do is they're doing this sort of Raffle auction thingy where you can again donate money for the charity for the instruments for kids and stuff like that. And one of the raffle entries will now win not Jared's 18-string guitar, but Stevie's 20-string guitar. Again, it's still a one-of-a-kind guitar, and because the money is going for a good cause and you can donate whichever amount of money you want to, I think it would be cool if we could do our part. And Charles Cornell, another successful YouTube musician, also released a video last week where he analyzed the music from the Star Wars trailer. And to be completely honest, I'm sending you to that video not only because it's a great video, but because I was going to do that video. He just did it a little bit faster than me. Basically, he noticed a very interesting thing during the Star Wars trailer that I noticed too, and I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't really sound right. Or, I mean, it's not like it sounds wrong. It just isn't the type of sound that I'm accustomed to. I highly suggest that you go check out his video. Again, I was this close to making the video and then he did it faster than I did. It's not like I'm salty or anything, and if I posted that video, it would probably not get that many views. And I don't really know how many views Charles' video has right now, but I can check it out. It's around 51,000 views. Again, if for some reason you aren't aware of Charles' videos, I highly suggest you not only go check it out, but subscribe to his channel, because he actually does some very funny, meme-worthy videos. You've probably seen a video of his already, and if you haven't, again, go check it out. He has a great channel. And before we get to some other videos, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube acts a little bit weird. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the notification bell thingy below, you still really will not notify of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my videos, not only do I suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, but in general at Mark Guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and share this on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. But getting back to the video itself, something I want to talk about, which even though it's not Stevie T related, I can definitely see Stevie T doing a video about this, which is Adam Sandler attempting to shred on guitar. And I say attempting because even though he apparently knows how to play, even though I'm not British guitar players would probably call him a wanker. Basically, a couple of videos went around the internet. The ones I saw were shared by the Pensa custom account and the Rudy's account. From what I understood, apparently Adam Sandler is recording this like 60 minutes report thing that not only involves him playing guitar, but apparently playing some high-end guitars and jamming with some other musicians. And I think I can show a little clip of him playing and not get the video taken down. And it's like when you see those guitar players that are in that sort of intermediate thing that don't really know theory nor practice too much, and you're like, well, yeah, it's not like he's playing anything wrong, but it's sort of like this mindless playing that really doesn't go anywhere. I'm not saying that Adam Sandler sucks and that I play better than him nor anything like it, but I'm definitely saying that we've seen that he can play, but can he play in a musical sense? Because I actually would like to see that. Again, not trying to bash into Adam Sandler, just thought it was interesting because I didn't knew that Adam Sandler played the guitar. Then when I clicked the video, I was actually expecting the video to be like, oh, Adam Sandler was learning guitars, so he went to the Rudy store and picked out an expensive guitar that he likes. But no, again, I don't want to bash into anybody, but you guys can tell me what you think. And of course, we need to talk about Gibson Guitars, because who doesn't want to talk about Gibson Guitars? Again, just like the Adam Sandler portion of the video, and in like other episodes where I also talk about Gibson, because apparently they like to do stuff every week. I don't really want to bash into them and say, bad Gibson, you suck and whatever. But one thing that I thought was interesting was, again, we already knew that the European Union courts decided that the Flying V wasn't really a design that they could enforce trademark rules under, because the guitar is from 1958 and we're in 2019, over 50 years later. Now it's probably a little bit too late for you to do anything, especially because, let's be honest, Gibson's problem is not that there are other brands using their designs. I mean, that's a problem, sure. I wouldn't want to have counterfeit versions of my products. But again, because Framus is related to this, when Framus does a Flying V style guitar, or Dean does a Flying V style guitar, if you buy one of those instead of a Gibson, it's probably because their models offer something that your models don't. If somebody wants a Flying V, they'll buy a Gibson, but if they want a Flying V that's a little bit more modern, they'll probably buy a Dean, or if they want to buy a Flying V that's like more fancy, they'll probably buy a Framus. But again, that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today was that the European courts decided that the Firebird was also a body shape that they've now lost the trademark to. And even though this is sort of a debatable subject, I kind of agree with the courts in this situation. Again, I would probably agree with the courts anyway, but I agree with their arguments and their reasoning, which again, I'm not quoting anything, I'm sort of giving my analysis of it. But basically what I understood is, okay, yeah, the guitar was your design 50 years ago, but it's not like any non-guitar player can associate that design with Gibson. If you think of some other high-end brands like Ferrari, for instance, even people that are not like car fanatics and stuff like that can look at the Ferrari logo with the horse and the yellow background and say, oh, that's the Ferrari logo. But when people look at a Les Paul style guitar, most people will not really look at it and say, oh, that's a Gibson. Or look at a Firebird and say, oh, that's a Gibson. Or look at a Flying V and say, oh, that's a Gibson. Sure, the car market is a much bigger market than the guitar market, but I think we can probably agree that it makes sense. Not only is it uncool to go bash into those smaller boutique brands, even though they say that they've got plans on the line and that they've got some collaborations, like smaller brands can pay a fee and use Gibson designs in their own way and whatever. That's just dumb, but again, that's not what we're talking about. I actually saw Steve from Boston repost this news, and he was like, well, I see how this happened, and I can picture the Les Paul going next. And even though he didn't say it about the SG, I'm thinking that maybe the SG can come next along with the Les Paul. Again, tell me in the comments below. Just like when a normie sees a Firebird style guitar, can they associate that design with Gibson? Well, probably not. Do you think normies or non-guitar players can associate the Les Paul body shape or the SG body shape necessarily with the Gibson brand? And honestly, we're not finished with talking about Gibson, because at the time I'm recording this video, which is on a Monday, yesterday, Sunday, they released this weird video that I wouldn't really picture them releasing. Again, I really like it because I'm into film scoring and stuff like that. Basically, they released this video called Behind the Board, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And again, for somebody like me, who's a composer and is really into film scoring, and especially Nightmare on Elm Street being one of these pop culture landmarks, I really enjoyed the video. And when I clicked the video and I saw what the video was about, I initially thought that maybe I read the channel name wrong and I thought it was Gibson and it was another channel. But no, it's the Gibson Guitar channel. And one part of me is like, well, yes, I would like to keep watching some of these videos, but then another part of me is like, but why did Gibson do a video about this? Sure, he used guitar sounds in the scoring of Elm Street, and the composer, whose name I can't remember right now, says in the video that he really likes the Gibson sound, but that's it, basically. The whole almost 20-minute video is basically him talking about his experience while scoring the film and whatever, which again, I can appreciate a lot. But is it Gibson content? And again, the guy might actually be like a crazy shreddy guitar player, but he didn't play guitar and they didn't talk about it in the video. It was a video about his experience in the industry and scoring the film Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm sitting here asking to myself, well, shouldn't they maybe start releasing some guitar-related content? Like, because they're Gibson and they endorse some of the biggest artists on the planet, like people that Andertons can't reach, to do like Captain Meats interviews, like for instance Slash. Slash wouldn't do a Captain Meats interviews. It's not like he wouldn't maybe enjoy it or whatever. He's too famous for it. He wouldn't stop at Andertons to do it. And even if you argue that maybe he doesn't have the time or that his management doesn't want to do it or whatever, Gibson would be able to do it like this. And even though Mark Agnesi turned from like a real likable figure to almost this like fallen angel type of figure, am I the only one thinking that Mark Agnesi interviewing Slash in that sort of Captain Meat style would be not only a highly watchable content, but would probably end up being a very popular video because Slash is one of the most popular guitar players ever, and there isn't really that much internet content about him. And again, even if it isn't interviews or sending guitar to YouTubers or stuff like that, again, I really like the video because I'm a film scoring nerd and a composer, but that's not really the sort of content I want from Gibson. Again, tell me what you think in the comment section below and what content you guys think Gibson should be doing. And before we get to gear, because again, we all like talking a lot about gear, there's an Instagram post I want to mention from Nathaniel Murphy, or as Zeppelin Bernatra. If you don't follow his Instagram, I really think you should. He's a crazy guitar player. He does the more songwriting chordy stuff. He does some tapping rocky stuff. He does some regular rippage and shreddage stuff. Please go check him out if you haven't already. He's already at, I don't know, 187k followers or something like it, which is crazy, but he can get more. He's like really good. And he did this video playing a Dan Electro baritone. Which is just crazy. And even if you think, oh, maybe you're exaggerating, it's just a cool video, everybody plays the guitar good nowadays. Well, yes, you're right, but let me tell you that when you've got likes and comments from Peter Honore, when you've got comments from Mark Lettieri, John Bollinger, I don't really remember how to pronounce it, but whatever, Ariel Posen, and probably more, you're definitely doing something right. And even though he's playing this slidey baritone stuff, there were some awesome licks here and there, and you can probably expect me to do videos on some of those licks. Another Instagram post that I thought was really good was a post by Dweezil Zappa, where he's just messing around during soundcheck with his Stratocaster, I think that's how it pronounces it, just going into an XFX3, I guess, and he was playing this Hendrix riff, and like, I think I've mentioned this before, that when it comes to single coil neck tones, I prefer the neck tone of a Strat, not a Tele. I think Tele pickups on the neck have this sort of more farty, squashy sound. But when I watched that video, I was just like, the tone, I want that tone. It doesn't really happen that often that I hear somebody play and I'm like, damn, what pedal is he using, what model is he using, what stuff is he using? But this was definitely one of them. Again, I'll try to play a little bit and see if this doesn't really get taken down. But man, the tone. And now finally getting to gear. Something I want to talk about is, again, if you've watched the other episodes, you've probably noticed that I like to bash into guitars that I think are ugly. Again, not necessarily in a destructive sense, but more in a constructive sense. Or at least I like to think about it that way. But in this case, we have two guitars that I'm not really sure what to think about them. The first one is this guitar that Greg Koch played in one of the Wildwood Guitars videos, where he plays this Fender Custom Shop Master-Built Ron Thorne California Special, which honestly is sort of this modern Strat-ish thing, and I'm not sure if the model is something new or not, but for me it is new, because I've never seen one of those before. And on one hand, I sort of like it sort of feels like a Strat, but a little bit modern, like I mentioned before. But then there's something about it that I don't really like. I'm not sure if it's the headstock on that guitar, or maybe it's the pickguard that looks a little bit weird because it sort of has that Jaguar thing of having like a normal hollow pickguard and then the control cavity being on this chrome sort of a thing, which even though I like on Telecasters, everything else I don't really enjoy that much. Again, I don't know about you guys, that's why I'm talking about it. I'd really like to know what you guys think about this guitar. But on one hand, I'm like, it's kind of interesting, like, yeah, sure, I could see myself playing one of those. But then on another hand, I'm sort of like, it's not like it's horrible, but it should probably be burned by fire. And another guitar that I sort of feel similar to is this Kiesel guitar, this Ares model that they posted on Instagram, or in this case that Chef Kiesel posted on Instagram, and I'm not really sure what to think about this finish. They're calling this a bright silver Cali burst over white finish. Like on one hand, my brain thinks, it's too much and it looks weird, like going from metallic that's sort of bright but not as bright as white. Again, going for a full white sort of looks weird, but then another part of me is like, it looks weird and I probably wouldn't get one, but it sort of looks cool. Again, I really feel conflicted about this finish and I'd like to know what you guys think. And again, another interesting, should I call it interesting, design that I would like to talk about is, again, I know this isn't a bass show, but because I'm sort of a bass player, I still want to talk about this sort of stuff, which is the Warwick Vampire bass. I think it would probably be more controversial if more people knew about the shape of this bass. Like, it's probably a bass that will end up in Patrick Hunter's Ugly Bass series, and even though it's kind of too modern and too sharp and in a way too spicy for me, again, says the guy who has Gene Simmons' Punisher bass, but whatever. It looks a little bit too much, but then they posted on Instagram this custom shop version of it, which not only is the entire bass in the same color, which they call Midnight Blue Transparent Satin, which honestly kind of reminds me of Merple when Henning Pauly still had that guitar. Personally, I'm not a fan of this famous Kiesel thing, painting the fretboards as well. Even though in some contexts it can look cool, it's not only the fretboard being colored that doesn't look cool. At least to me, the whole thing seems so weird. I don't know if it's because of the shape, or if it's for some reason because of the entire thing being one color. I don't really like it. But for some reason I think people may enjoy it because it has almost 2,000 likes more than the other frames that I showed you in last video, which was like the super high-end ES guitar style that had an Evertune but was all built inside the semi-hollow guitar body, so it didn't really have a backplate. That looked really cool, and this one has more likes even though it's probably an atrocious sort of a thing. But yeah, are any of you that actually enjoy this? And of course we need to talk about PRS, because we always talk about PRS. Just like the previous weeks, they've released some new models, and something that I find interesting is that the new models for 2020, which I think is their 30th or 35th anniversary, something like it, it's not like they dramatically changed, but something that I thought was interesting is that in their core range, the McCarthy models are now much more traditional, as in like they don't really have locking tuners anymore, and I think the control layout is a little bit simpler and the pickups are less hot, and if I'm not mistaken the nut is now bone or something like it that's more traditional. Again, it's a McCarthy model, so it's supposed to be more traditional. I get it, but if I was going to buy a PRS McCarthy, I would personally want it with locking tuners, and I would like to know your thoughts on this McCarthy becoming even more traditional. And another thing I thought was interesting is that both the SC models and the regular core models are now much closer to Paul's guitar. Again, for those who don't know, Paul Reed Smith from Paul Reed Smith Guitars has this sort of signature model-ish sort of a thing, which has these more narrow field pickups, and they have this like fancy electronic system, and instead of having like push-pull pots, they have this like split mini toggles and stuff like that now the regular models also have. Again, I'm not sure if it's something just for 2020 for the 35th anniversary, or if it's a feature that they're going to completely adopt. But again, honestly, I thought that the regular PRS models were fine. It's not like it makes it worse, it's just like I'm thinking to myself, well, if I wanted a Pulse guitar, I would buy a Pulse guitar and not a Custom 24. But for some other people who don't really have the money for a Pulse guitar, and are like, well, maybe I wanted the Custom 24 or the Custom 22 to be more like Pulse guitar, maybe that makes sense to you. Again, I'd like to know in which side you guys land in, because they're doing it, again, not only in the core side of their models, but also in the SC side of the models. And another popular brand who's got some new models, again, technically it's not new models, it's more like the same models but with new features, is Chapman Guitars, because they've released a couple of new colors and fades and stuff like that for some of the Indonesian ML1s and for some of the Indonesian baritones. And I don't know about you, but I think the blue to purple looks awesome. I think the metallic purple thing, even though it's not necessarily for me, I think there's probably an audience for it, especially because it doesn't really have that super glossy finish on top of it, like with all that lacquer and stuff like it. That sort of natural beige-ish color to purple is also really cool. The only ones I have a couple of thoughts about are, they have this red sparkle one, which sort of reminds me of this finish that Solar Guitars did a couple of months ago. But again, it's not like Ola owns any colors, and I definitely think that not only it looks cool, but that Chapman probably noticed that that color was really popular, so they probably took their chances. And even though it's not completely ugly, the one I don't really feel that attached to is the red to black fade one. I think it looks mehish, whether in the Ghost Fret or in the regular ML1. But man, let me tell you, those purple fades, whether the blue one or the beige natural one, are really cool. And lastly but not leastly, we're talking about Aristides guitar, or Aristides, something like it. Again, I think Phil McKnight should probably do another video of how do you pronounce brand names. But basically we're talking about Aristides because, as you probably know, Aristides are a brand of these like modern guitars that are not made of wood. I think they're made of this like aluminum foam or something like it. Some sort of composite, basically not wood. And I don't know about you guys, but the first time I saw an Aristides was this red Aristides bass. I think it was on the Bass the World channel a couple of years ago. I'm not really sure, but yeah. At first I saw it in the thumbnail and I thought, well, it looks kind of cool. But then I started looking at those cavities on top and I'm like, those look super weird. And even though I think that the guitars would probably be more cool to me if they didn't really have those cavities on the top, I think it sort of gives it a very specific look that, for those who like it, Aristides can definitely profit on it. But yeah, we're talking about this boy right here, which I don't know about you guys, but I really like this finish. Even though it's not really a traditional guitar, and the finish is sort of over the top, I really like it. It doesn't really come close to the best Aristides guitar that I saw a couple of months or maybe a year ago actually. That sort of reminded me of Iron Man. If I could, I would definitely have my hands on that guitar. Again, you can tell me what you think about that guitar, but just taking a look at this guitar, I really like it. Again, it's a modern guitar, and it's probably not a guitar that you would take to a wedding gig or a bar mitzvah or something like it, but I think it looks awesome. But yeah, I guess that's it. Again, please leave me your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd really like to see what you guys think of basically everything we talked about in this video. Again, if you've stayed this far, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications. I do more videos like this, but I also do some other videos. I do guitar lesson-ish stuff, I do composing-ish stuff. I'll leave some playlists in the card section right there and on the annotations of the end screen. But again, if you guys would check out my back catalog and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And share this video on social media, I'd really appreciate it. And the video is probably really long already, so let's end it with this. Thank you so very much for watching. Consider checking out some of my back catalog, and cheers!